Welcome to Fruity Knitting. This is episode 103. I'm Andrew.
And I'm Andrea. And although our program is mainly about knitting, sheep and their fleece or wool feature very heavily on our show. But today we're also going to include yak and camels and goats, as well as two ancient sheep breeds that you may not have even heard of. So our main feature interview is with the founder of Nomadnoos yarns, Coté Jeronimus. And Nomadnoos yarn uses fibre from Mongolian yak and camel, as well as the native Mongolian Sartuul sheep. And this fibre is then sent to Nepal, and it's hand spun by a small group of women who have exceptional hand spinning skills. And Coté works directly with both groups. So that cuts out a lot of the middlemen, and it also means that both groups will get a higher income. And that's great because it helps them keep their traditional lifestyle. So during the interview, of course, we're going to hear all about this very beautiful, luxurious hand-spun yarn and how it's made. But we also get to hear more about the lifestyle of both groups, which I think is really fascinating, particularly how the nomads live with their animals. That's intriguing to me.
Yeah.
Now, Coté is Dutch, but she lives in the Swiss mountains, and she's also developing a local Swiss wool that's made out, or yarn, that's made out of a primitive European sheep breed called the Scottish sheep, and she tells us about that project as well. So during this interview, we really cover a wide variety of animals and their fibres.
Yeah, we also cover goats, but these goats are not Angora goats, so we're not actually going to be looking at their fleeces. Our Makers segment is back again, and today we're taking you to a small goat farm in Bavaria here in Germany, where they produce really wonderful goat cheese. It is a family-run farm, so it's very small. We get close and intimate with the goats. We see them being milked. We get into the kitchen in the dairy and see the cheesemaker separating the curds and the whey and making all sorts of different cheeses. It's really fascinating. Our Makers segment is always a short detour into a field outside of the fibre arts, but we're all connoisseurs of handmade artisan products, so I'm sure you're going to love seeing the skill that goes into making goat cheese. Back on the knitting front, we've got two finished projects to show off, which also means we've got two new projects to show you. And as a special treat, Andrea's actually prepared a very short segment showing behind the scenes of how we set up and carry out an interview. I think that's really fun. So it's another full and very varied program coming up.
So I've met the deadline. I have finally completely finished the Bohemian Blooms crochet blanket by Janie Crow. This is just some of it. I am still in shock that I've finished this. It's amazing. So for new viewers, I started this project around January last year in order to teach myself how to crochet. I thought this is a brilliant project. It'll take me from A to Z on crochet, and by the end of it, I'll be able to say I'm a crocheter. And I can say that now, and I'm still in shock. So what I did is I worked on this, even though I started on it in January last year, I worked on it in very short, say 1 to 2 week segments with very long breaks of about 3 to 4 months in between. And that was not a good way to work on this because those long breaks made me forget everything I'd learned, and every time I picked it up again, I had to relearn the stitches and techniques, which took a whole lot of extra time. So in the end, I decided I've had enough of that. I'm just going to push on through till I finish the blanket. So I've actually been working on it monogamously for the last 5 to 6 weeks, and I haven't done a stitch of knitting during this time, which is pretty amazing. So I am sure you are all thrilled that I finished this blanket as well. So thanks for being patient. So now you can see me start a new project. But like I said, I'm still look at it and I'm in shock that I've actually come through it because certain sections of it nearly killed me, literally. So last episode, I had put together all of the fancy flowers, and it sort of extends up. So this is it here. So last episode, I'd put together all of the fancy flowers in the middle, and I'd done this inside border around the outside, which gives it stability. Since then, I had to do 4 more of these white flowers with the beading there. They're very beautiful. So they go in each corner. You won't see it down there, but there's one there. And then I had to join all of the pieces of the blanket together, which actually took quite a long time. And you do that with double crochet. That's the UK term for, I'm always talking UK terms. So after I did that, you then have to do this final scalloped edging here. And this really nearly killed me. It's about 900 stitches. It goes right around the outside. It's well over 900 stitches. So sometime during the last 2 weeks, I thought, you know what, I am going to finish this blanket by the next episode. And I knew to do that, I would have to finish it at least one day before we sat down and record it so that I'd have time to lay it out and block it. And so I could present it to you so it's looking at its best, because it would be sad not to do that. So I just kept on pushing with this goal in mind. And then just a couple of nights ago, I'm finished it and I'm doing the edging, and it's midnight and Andrew's gone to bed and I'm sitting alone on the couch just pushing on, and I think I've just got one more row to go. And mind you, because I was a beginner crochet, well, I didn't know how to crochet really before I started the blanket. Every new section of this blanket, I've had to learn something new. So either a new stitch or a new technique or a different way of using that stitch. So, by the time you're at the end, you think, I'm there, it's only one last row. But I'm sitting at midnight, I get to the one last row and I read the instructions and my morale I was devastated. It was a really sorry sight. I was sitting here having a bit of a sob. Andrew had gone to bed. And I'm thinking, Janie, why did you have to make the very last row of this blanket so hard? Because I couldn't understand it. And I'm thinking that I cannot believe this. This is so hard. I'm gonna fail this project on the very last row. Luckily, Janie does have some tutorials just on the very hard bits of this blanket. And she does have a 2-minute tutorial on this last row, but she doesn't show you how to do it. She shows you a close-up picture of it and sort of explains it. And at midnight when you're tired, your brain my brain wasn't there. And so after I had a bit of a sob, I thought, no, stop being emotional. Just go really slowly, think clearly, just read one word at a time and see if you can understand it. And I eventually understood it, so that was cool. And then I got going and I finished it. So like I said, I am still in shock. But there were a couple of times during this blanket, let's hold it out again so everyone can see its beauty. Hold it from the second one. There's a couple of times that I seriously thought this blanket was going to defeat me. But I really didn't want to, because I told Janie a few times, I promised her, I'm going to finish this blanket. Don't worry, I'm going to finish it. Because we interviewed her back in episode 71, and we've also had her for a live event. So Shetland and Merino patrons, there is an audio podcast there where Janie talks. It's more sort of a fun, casual atmosphere, but she talks a lot about her techniques and her inspiration and things. So if you're interested, that's there if you haven't heard it. But so I didn't want to let her down. I wanted to do this. So I pushed on, but there was a couple of times that I really wondered whether I would actually get through. But I'm really proud. I'm really happy. I can now say I am a crocheter.
Yeah.
Yay. And I do have one more problem, and that is I'm not quite sure what to do with it. If you look at the colour scheme, it actually goes really beautifully in our room, but our lounge room, which you're going to see from all angles later on in the program, is actually very humble and small, and this is quite a dramatic feature, and I don't want to stick it on the couch and sit on it because it's with all this beading and this delicateness in the flowers, you don't want to be sitting and sort of rubbing and pulling it in different directions. So I can't lay it over the couch, even though it would look really beautiful just sitting on the couch like that. And I thought, and I also don't want to lay it out on a spare bed, as a bed cover and have hardly anybody ever see it. That would be a shame. So I thought I might hang it up on the wall, like put some backing behind the top of it and a rod in, because that's what Janie does with her blankets when she's going to a festival, and hang it up on the wall. And you're all in favour for this. He wants this to be a sound blanket so that we can dampen the reverb in this room and you can have better sounding
just a
audio.
Benefit. It's like a side benefit of it.
You do realise that's a tremendous amount of intricate work just so that you can have a sound blanket.
Yeah, but it's not just for that. It's there to look beautiful and it happens to help the sound.
Yeah. Okay. So I am really, really happy and so thrilled that I got through it. So thrilled that I've got this beautiful blanket as an heirloom. I just have to do it justice and find a good position for it. And that I can call myself a crocheter as well as a knitter.
Yeah, I have to say, Janie's quite brave, isn't she? throwing out these challenges to all the crocheters?
Yeah, no, well, look, I'm a beginner, so I shouldn't really be doing it in a way. I mean, but
It's your own fault.
no, I am happy that she did it because it's beautiful. If you look at and you'll see, I'm going to show you some footage later. It is a beautiful edging, and it's this bit here that was kind of crazy that I didn't know what she meant or how to do it. But it's beautiful, and I'm glad, and I can do it now. You just have to go slowly, systematically, read word by word, and not sort of get overwhelmed, with feeling too emotional about it, which is I was at midnight. Anyway, I want to show you some footage now of how I pinned it all out to block it. So I'd already blocked most of the individual pieces before joining them together, but I still needed to stretch the blanket out to make sure that it was really going to lay flat. And I also wanted to block out the scalloped edging. So I put 3 insulation mats down together, and then I think I used Knit Pick blockers. I don't ever look at the brand name, but I think that's what they are. I made the whole blanket the correct size, so it's a real perfect square. And then I pinned out each individual scallop around the edge. So the blanket was dry when I did this, and then when it was all laid out, I used a cold water spray and just sprayed the pieces that needed flattening until they were damp but not completely soaking. And you can see Andrew doing that here for me. And Jack's always very curious. He likes to come in and see what's going on. So he's there making sure Andrew's doing a good job of it.
We're still in Bring and Brag. I pressed on to get my project finished as well in time for this episode. Andrea is wearing it. That did actually mean that we had 2 projects to be blocked at the same time, quite urgently. And so Andrea actually had to send me down to get some pins.
Yeah,
so
more pins.
I went to a dressmaking shop. Can I say that quickly?
Yeah.
I went to a dressmaking shop and I went in and I said, I need some pins. And she gave me some pins and I thought they were really long.
Yeah.
And I said to her, I actually need them for knitting. And I think she thought I was going to knit with the pins. But I had to explain blocking and we got there in the end. I bought the real economy pack.
Yeah.
And having seen your blanket,
yeah, we needed
I think that
them.
was the right choice. Yep. Anyway, so it's finished. I think this was a really good project for me. As we know, I'm really good at stocking stitch. That was good. And this centre section with the cables and lace, I also managed that, I think, really well. Only one mistake that you can't really see.
It's looking so impressive.
That's good. So it was all good. But there were 2 problems that sort of showed up right at the end.
Yeah.
This garment is knitted in pieces. And as you know, if you've watched the show, we use backstitch to do the seaming. And
Most of the time, yeah.
I've done that before, and that's all fine. So I started doing that here. Andrea showed me how to do it and started me off on one of the seams. And I
normally do about 10 stitches and say, use my stitches as a guide.
Yeah. And I took over and did a few, and I did the little to get the puckering out, made sure it was not puckering, and then I would give it back to Andrea for her to check. And there we got a bit of a routine where Andrea would say, they're too big and it's pretty messy.
Yeah, and I would unpick them and give it back to him.
Yeah. And I really tried. I mean, I knew she wanted short, small stitches, and I knew she wanted them in a nice straight line. And I really tried to do that, but I really found it was very hard to see where I should be putting the needle. Now, I have mentioned on the show before that I thought I needed glasses, reading glasses, so that I could see my stitches. These are my long distance glasses. So I actually only wear these driving. That makes it much easier to see the audience here.
Hello.
But I've known for a while that I need reading glasses.
Yeah.
So
you took yourself off to...
I was so frustrated. I didn't really have time, but I took myself off to the optometrist.
Yeah.
And got myself tested. Long distance is much the same as it was. And then we got to the short distance test. And I said to the guy, I am having a problem, and this might surprise you a little bit, but I knit. And that didn't faze him at all.
Yeah.
I think he was really just very skilled at going over whatever comes up and not saying anything. Anyway, I had the test. I need reading glasses.
Yeah.
So we're looking at it. You think maybe bifocals
I
would
reckon
be a
you'll
good
need
idea?
bifocals because we always knit when we watch television. These are my glasses. They're really dirty. But because you're looking out at the television and you're looking down. You're looking out and looking down. So you need this bifocals. And what's really amazing, I got these end of last year and I hated them to start off with. You could really tell the difference. But then after some time, your brain just does something really amazing and you can't see the difference at all.
Yeah.
So I think you need...
Yeah, we'll see. I might talk to the expert.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'm expecting great things from my glasses when I get them.
So the second problem.
The second problem, and this one's a bit more sad. I mean, that's okay. You can't see the problem there, so that's solved. Second problem is, I mentioned in the last episode the decreases, and I was really proud of myself because I got them all in at the right spot, and I did. The shaping of the armholes and the sleeve caps, it's all perfect, and they all went together perfectly. It was actually only after we'd finished the entire garment, all finished, and you were wearing it.
Yeah.
And we thought...
No. I noticed it earlier, but I was too tired to tell you.
Okay. Anyway, in the pattern it says, at the beginning of the row, do knit 2 together through the back loop, and at the end of the row, do knit 2 together. And that gives you nice sort of neat
shaping.
Decreases, and they match each other. So the left and right match, and also when you bring the two seams together, the decreases here match up with the decreases there. It looks all good. I don't know what stitches I did for my decreases.
Yeah,
I think
or hickory-pickory, you did some this way and some the other way.
Yeah, I mean, inside of each piece, I did the same thing at the beginning. I did one thing at the beginning, one thing at the end, but it's different from one piece to the next, you can see.
We'll even show you a picture. We'll be very brave and show you Andrew's mistake.
I mean, the result is it kind of looks like a bit of a nasty scar.
It's not that bad.
No, it's not quite that bad, but it's a bit unfortunate. And it really shows up because this is the Sandnes Duo yarn.
Yeah.
It's a cotton and wool blend, 50-50. I think because it's a lot of cotton, it's not fuzzy at all. The stitches really show up, so there's no hiding it.
Yeah.
So that was kind of unfortunate. I did think I was quite good at doing exams when I was at school. And I did things like maths and, for me, things which are kind of simple and they're very clear. And if I had to give anyone advice on doing an exam like that, the first piece of advice I would give is read the question. And
everyone reads the question, but you mean read it exactly.
Yeah, you have to read it exactly. I mean, I do think you say everyone reads the question. I think sometimes you look at something and you think it knows what it says.
You think you know.
You know what it says, and you go on with that. And I think that's essentially what I did here.
Yeah.
I didn't read the pattern closely.
Yeah.
I just thought, it's a decrease.
And I didn't check up on you.
No.
I just thought, I'm too tired. I'll let you do it. Because you seem to be more confident this time.
Yeah, I was really confident. I was overconfident. Anyway, that was.
But look, it doesn't matter. I'm going to wear my hair long at the back. I think it's worse on the back than it is on the front.
Yeah.
And it's stunning.
It's fine.
I mean, this is so impressive that at the front you're just going to look at this.
Yep.
And this is gorgeous.
Yep.
And I love the colour.
Yep.
I think it's great. Thank you.
Oh, there you go. So that's my finished project. We're now going to take a trip out to the countryside. We're going to a little town called Schölkrippen in Bavaria to visit our goat farm and see the goat cheese being made.
You got lipstick.
My name is Roland and I love cheese. I make cheese and goat cheese is better cheese.
I remember a television scene from my childhood viewing where a goat eats a piece of clothing from a farmyard clothesline. We're visiting a goat farm today, so I did a little research, and it's amazing how much from that scene is actually true. Goats are extremely curious, and they explore new objects with their very dexterous upper lip, and they do have a tendency to eat the object of their curiosity. They're also very clever and very agile. If there's any way to get out of their pen, not only will they find it, but they'll remember it for future use, and other goats will learn about it very quickly. But there is a very close relationship between goats and humans, and evidence of domestic goats goes back to more than 10,000 years ago. Well, I'm also very curious, so I'm here with Marie and Michelle, and you're third generation goat farmers now. And can you tell us a bit about your goats and also the cheese that you make from the goat's milk?
Of course. Our farm is called der Berghof, which means the mountain farm. And it's located in Schellkrippen in the north of Bavaria in Germany. And it covers an area of 220 hectares.
Yeah, and how many goats do you have?
We currently have 100 milking goats,
Okay.
and they get milked twice a day, mornings and evenings.
Yep.
And we process all the milk on our farm in our own cheese dairy, and we sell our products to the supermarkets in the region and in our own farm shop here.
Okay.
So,
And it's a family business run by my parents, my grandpa, my sister and me. And the farm is an organic farm.
Yep. Okay. And what's the name of the breeds that we've got here? I can see we've got the white ones on one
Yeah.
side and the brown ones on the other.
the white ones are called in English German improved white, and the brown ones German improved fawn.
Yeah.
So we have the brown and the white ones. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell us the names in German?
Deutsche bunte Edelziege und deutsche weiße Edelziege.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. And what do you see as the goal of the farm? What's your aim?
Our aim is to bring the milk products from the goats to the community,
Yeah.
and we want to continue to operate in a sustainable way, economically and ecologically.
Yep.
Yeah.
Terrific.
So I think we're really excited to work together here on the farm. We both love the work here on the farm and with the animals, and it's a lot of fun with goats. Yeah. So I love goats because they are always smiling. What do you think?
I think too that they're very friendly and they are very attached to people.
Yeah.
Ziegenkäse ist besser als Kuhkäse. Ziegenkäse-Fettbestandteile sind in kleineren Ketten und deswegen kann sie der menschliche Körper besser abbauen und verträglicher für den Menschen. Das heißt, auch viele Menschen, die eine Laktoseintoleranz haben, vertragen Ziegenkäse sehr gut. Ich habe angefangen vor 5 Jahren Käse zu machen. Bis zu dem Zeitpunkt habe ich in meinem ganzen Leben vielleicht 2 oder 3 Stückchen Ziegenkäse gegessen. Gelernt habe ich Metzger und Koch. Und wie das Leben so spielt, muss man seine Ernährung umstellen, und dann bin ich auf den Ziegenkäse gekommen. Jeder Käse ist anders, weil die Zusammensetzung immer anders ist. Die Fütterung der Ziegen schwankt, jetzt ist es sehr trocken, das heißt, das Futter ist sehr trocken. Das heißt, die Milchzusammensetzung ist auch wieder anders. Ne? Und ich muss jedes Mal aufs Neue herausfinden, was ich aus der jeweiligen Milch für den besten Käse machen kann. Indem man die Milch probiert, zum einen, und dann spürt man schon, wie hoch der Fettgehalt ist. Ja, auf der Zunge, auf dem Gaumen spürt man diesen Fettgehalt. Und dann kann ich sagen, okay, die ist jetzt super gut für einen Weichkäse, weil natürlich da ein höherer Fettgehalt viel besser ist. Oder ein Hartkäse, und im Endeffekt kommt dann noch dazu, wie ich den jeweiligen Käse bearbeite. Wie oft ich den schneide. Ich kann also aus dem Grundkäse zum Beispiel einen ganz weichen Butterkäse machen, derselbe Zusammensetzung von der Kulturen, vom Lab, von der Milch. Und auf der anderen Seite, wenn ich ihn anders bearbeite, die Temperatur etwas verändere und den Käse mehr schneide, beim Abfüllen noch etwas verändere, dann habe ich auf einmal einen Hartkäse. Also nur durch das Verändern von handwerklichen Sachen kann ich aus 2 Grundprodukten komplett andere Käse machen. Also hier oben haben wir einen Boxhornklee-Käse, der ist mit Boxhornkleesaat und der hat im Geschmack, schmeckt der so leicht nussig. Ja? Unten drunter haben wir den Kernbeißer, der ist auch mit Boxhornklee, zusätzlich noch mit Kürbiskern und mit Walnüssen. Die Schwierigkeit bei der Herstellung dieses Käses ist einfach, dass die Walnüsse in die Mitte kommen. Ja? Wenn die Walnüsse nach außen kommen, dann sind sie sehr schimmelempfindlich und der Käse wird nicht mehr so reifen. Deswegen werden in diesen Käse die Walnüsse per Hand einzeln eingelegt. Ja, die werden nicht drunter gerührt, sondern per Hand einzeln eingelegt beim Abfüllen. Hier unten haben wir einen Geißenpeter. Das gibt einen Bergkäse, der ist jetzt noch sehr jung, 2 Wochen alt. Nach 3 Monaten ist er theoretisch gesehen verkaufsfähig. Aber am besten schmeckt ein Bergkäse, wenn er mindestens ein halbes Jahr oder 1 Jahr alt ist. Wenn der Bergkäse weiter reift, dann kommt er fast in Richtung Parmesan nach 2 Jahren von der Festigkeit. So, und den rechteckigen Käse hier unten, das ist ein Tilsiter. Der ist ein mittelfester Schnittkäse mit einer ganz leichten Bruchlochung, also ganz viele kleine Löcher, keine großen, nur kleine Löcher. Vom Biss her ist er relativ weich, ist aber vom Geschmack her sehr würzig. Ein super schöner Rotwein dazu, eine Kerze und der Abend ist gelaufen.
So there are occasional perks to this job, and today Marie has prepared this beautiful plate of cheeses and we've got a glass of wine here. Marie, can you maybe take us through what sort of cheeses we've got here?
Of course, yes. So I will start with this one. This is a kind of camembert, our Hernley. It's a really creamy one.
Yep.
Then we have here also a creamy one, but this one is special because there's ash around it. So you see it, the black stuff.
Okay, so that's actually ashes from burnt wood.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Okay.
And then here it's a harder one, so a hard cheese, and it has herbs and spices around it. And Monica always puts some beautiful flowers on it from her own garden.
It looks stunning. And which one is your favorite out of these?
This one is actually my favorite one because it's really creamy, and I really love it with some marmalade and a glass of wine.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's try a bit
Yes.
of that.
Yeah. You can try this one.
I'm going to grab that.
Yeah.
That's
like
lovely. And you say it's good with a glass of wine?
Yes, it is.
Well done. Cheers.
Cheers.
Thanks for having us. That's really yummy. It takes a little bit of time for the real goaty cheesy flavour to get through, but that's very yummy. So we've been tucking into this cheese. This one is called a Zickli, Z-I-C-K-L-I. I think that name comes from Ziegen, which is the name for a goat in German. So it's a young cheese, not matured very long, and it's obviously got herbs and a bit of pepper on it. And it's quite a soft cheese, so very yummy.
Delicious.
Really yummy.
I'll keep eating.
Yeah, you keep eating. It was a real pleasure to meet Marie and Michelle and Roland at the goat farm, and it was a complete experience to meet those goats, be right amongst them. They are so curious. They were really, you saw them climbing up. They were really curious about the cameras, and just like I expected, they were nibbling on our clothes. It was quite hilarious. There have been a lot of experiments done to assess the intelligence of goats, And the normal process there is that the researchers train the goats to do something. The goat gets a reward when they do it successfully. And then the second step is the researchers test how quickly the goats can then do that task. And that's just a basic measure of intelligence. And the goats do pretty well on that. So that's the first step. The next thing they do is sometimes they leave a gap. So there was one experiment where they left the goats for 10 months. Then they came back. They didn't train them again, but they did the testing again. And they found that the goats were still able to do this task really quickly. So they hadn't forgotten.
They had good long-term memory.
It showed they had a good long-term memory. So that's that. The next step, which I think is really fun, is the experimenters modify. They manipulate the task so that the goat doesn't get the reward anymore. And then they see what happens. They observe the goat's reaction. And what they find there is two things. Firstly, the goat will turn when they don't get the reward that they're expecting. The goat will turn and gaze.
That's just like a dog.
Yep, just like a dog. If you've got a dog, I'm pretty sure you've seen this behaviour. It's
like, where's my treat?
You have to think it's an appeal for help, you know. The other thing that they saw there, sort of an extension of that, is if the researcher is looking at the goat, then the goat will gaze at the researcher for longer. Than if, they tested it with the researcher looking at the goat and the researcher turns their back on the goat. If they've got their back turned, they won't gaze for as long. So it's like the goat is aware that the researcher can either see their gaze or not. It's not worth doing if they're not looking, which I think is really fascinating. So
they also did I can remember seeing a program where they showed they did an experiment on sheep and could the sheep recognise a happy face or an angry face?
Yeah.
So I think... Yeah.
A lot of fun to be had there.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yep. One more thing that I stumbled across in my reading about goats, and that is a goat tower. Doesn't really need any explanation. It's a tower for goats. I think it's a really good thing. I think the world's a better place for having a goat tower.
We would like to remind you that this is our full-time job and the show is only possible through the financial support of patrons. So we're not earning an income from selling anything else related on the side or through sponsorship or advertising. So if you are watching, please do make a small, regular monthly contribution by becoming a patron so that we can keep producing the show. And every single patron makes a big difference to us. And thank you to all of the wonderful viewers who have done that. We really appreciate you.
Yep.
Now, I am super excited to get back into knitting and start some new projects. I've had my eye on 2 new projects, and one of them I'm still waiting for the yarn to arrive in the post. So I'm going to start on the other project, and that is a design by Jennifer Bill. She's a Canadian designer who we've had on the show a couple of times already in our new releases segment. And I just want to show you some of her designs in case you're not familiar with her work. She has a very individual designing style. So she often takes traditional ferrule and lace motifs and then puts them in quirky combinations in her garments. So the garments have very modern silhouettes and the way they're constructed is completely outside of the box. You're often starting the garment in unexpected places and then you pick up stitches and you knit off in different directions. So her designs are really for the knitter who likes puzzles and surprises. Now the design I'm doing is this one here and it's called Lons or Loop. Is that right, Andrew?
I think that's okay, yeah.
Okay, my French is non-existent. So it's a top-down dolman-shaped sweater and it has a crop. It's kind of cropped or it's fitted in the waist, which I really love. And it has a split hem with the back being longer than the front. And the hem, the cuffs and the neckband are all done in lace. So it's a fairly quirky combination of these traditional, you've got a little bit of ferrule, it's cropped, you've got a dolman shaping on it, and you've got the lace on the hem and things. And the yarn Jennifer uses in this design is Hey Mama Wolf Makosh, and I totally love her colour combination. So I've only done one of Jennifer's designs before, and that's this one here, the Saint Lunaire Croquet, which you've seen me work on last year for quite a lot. So this is probably one of her most conventional designs. It's just a bottom-up yoke design. There is some really beautiful underarm detail work here, but it's a fairly conventional construction. So the design I'm doing is definitely not a conventional construction, which will be fun. So that's that one there. And the yarn that I'm going to use is a John Arbon yarn, and it's a sport weight. It's his latest yarn range collection, and it's called Yarnadelic. Very, very beautiful colours. So I'm going to have to show you a close-up picture of this yarn so you can see just how heathery the hues are. So Yarnadelic is 100% Falklands Corriedale, and I'm so in love with the colours. The yarn range is inspired by John's record collection, which is incredibly varied apparently. So I'm using the salmon colour as the main colour. That's just going to be my main body colour, and it's called Pink Moon, and the contrast colour is Badi Da. So they're dyed in the fleece. The fleece is dyed, and then the colours are combined together and carded together, and then it's spun, and it just creates these most spectacular, sophisticated, heathery hues. So I've started swatching, which is incredibly important for a Jennifer Beale design. And I've got a funny feeling that I'm going to even change the gauge, which is going to make it totally crazy. I'm not going to knit the gauge that she suggests, but I'm going to knit at my own gauge. I've got a funny feeling that that might happen, but I'll let you know more about it next episode. I'm actually swatching on two other colourways from the Yarnadelic yarn range. One of them is called Wondrous Place and the other one's called Le Fleur. I can't remember which one, but they're also totally stunning colours. So I'm swatching. I've only just finished the crochet blanket, so I haven't had time to even read through the pattern to see how it goes and what I'm up for. So I'll be able to tell you a lot more detail about this new project in the next episode.
Yeah. So I'm also starting a new project, and we know that I'm good at stocking stitch,
Yeah,
but
you excel there.
I excel. This is my strength. But I did that bit of Shetland lace with the bird's eye lace pattern, and I really enjoyed that. I figured I've got a thing for lace, so I wanted to do another lace project. And so you might think, all right, I could do a lace shawl for Andrea, but the truth is Andrea doesn't wear shawls, and also a shawl is a pretty big project in lace, in a fine lace. So I didn't really want to do that. But this project I think is perfect because it's a stocking stitch body and it has these two sleeves, which are like little shawls in themselves.
Yeah.
So
So these beautiful lace sleeves are sort of shaped like a rough triangle.
it is for Andrea, in case that wasn't clear. So I'm swatching on that. It's I'm using the Rowan Fine Lace yarn, which is 80% baby alpaca and 20% merino, using 2.25 and 3mm needles. I have to say, this is one where I'm looking forward to having my glasses.
Yeah, you're going to be swatching for 6 weeks.
That's what I thought. So next 3 episodes will just be on my swatch. So brace yourselves.
I thought it's the combination of the lace and the stocking stitch here is really a match made in heaven for Andrew of his talents.
We should mention the design is called Bowie. It's by Lisa Richardson in the Rowan, magazine number 67.
Yeah.
I'm figuring that the Bowie is from David Bowie, who died recently.
Do you reckon?
Yeah, so it's another musical reference in this episode. We've got the Yarnadelic and...
Anyway, back to the design. It is so beautiful. It's really going to be a real luxury, exquisite piece. And it's going to suit you because you've got this lace, which you love, and the stocking stitch. But it is so fine.
It is very fine.
It is so fine. I really hope I haven't given you a project that is going to...
Well, I have been thinking people like the stitch count calculations. I thought I might count the stitches and do a bit of an estimate, at least for the stocking stitch part. Do an estimate of how long it will actually take me, because maybe we should be informed.
I know. Maybe it's too ambitious, but I hope you can do it. I'd love to wear it.
I was just reading about doing a 5-year plan.
Okay, we'll move on. Now, coming up next, actually, a few of our viewers have been asking to see a little bit more behind the scenes of how we put our episodes together. So I thought it would be a lot of fun to stick the camera on and show you how we set up our lounge room, which is our studio, and film an interview. And we've done that for the interview that you're just about to see. So I thought it's really fun for you to see a very short segment that shows you Nomadnoos interview from the wings, so to speak, and then afterwards you get to see the really polished version right at the end of the program. Yep. So that's coming up now. So here's a sneak peek at our studio from the sidelines.
Behind the scenes. And then we've got the interview.
Yeah. Great, Andrew. Yep. Welcome to Fruity Knitting. My guest today is Coté Jeronimus, who you briefly met back in episode 96 when we covered the Swiss Yarn Festival. Coté has recently started her own brand of luxury hand-spun yarns called Nomadnoos. Nomadnoos has a strong social story behind it, benefiting small communities around the world. The yarn is made from Mongolian yak. So now you know exactly what our humble little lounge room looks like from every single angle.
Yeah, including from the floor.
Yeah, including from the floor. Actually, it's constantly set up like a recording studio. We always have our equipment shoved off to one side.
Yeah, it's easier. You know, some YouTubers actually mount their lights to their walls permanently.
Yeah.
So they never have to deal with it again.
That would be good in a way.
It's tempting.
Yeah, it would save
in
a lot
a
of
way.
work. Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny, you see the actual interview process where we record, and I always think it's a really intense bit, but it's actually just a really short bit in the whole process.
Mm-hmm.
Like we do that over one day. But before that, there's all this work that goes on, often over a period of many hours, often over a period of months.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, there's also this huge thing where we're again in contact with the guest and sorting things out and putting it all together. And in between, there's this intense little recording bit. So it's quite a funny experience. Anyway.
You're going to see the beautiful polished version now coming up of the interview. And Coté's a really interesting woman. I really enjoyed doing the interview with her, and I think it's a great interview. So I think you'll really enjoy it. And Coté is offering Fruity Knitting patrons a 20% discount off the whole collection of Nomadnoos yarns. They're very beautiful, luxurious hand-spun yarns made from Mongolian yak, camel, and the native Mongolian Sartuul sheep. And you'll hear all about how the fibres are grown, spun, and dyed in the upcoming interview. Now, Coté's latest project is the Swiss Cool Wool, so if you're interested in that yarn, you do need to contact Coté directly, and Coté's contact details, as usual, are in the program notes at fruityknitting.com. So thank you very much to Coté for that great, generous offer to our patrons.
Yeah, so thank you so much for being with us today. We've had a lot of fun. I hope everyone's had as much fun as we have. We'll see you in 2 weeks' time in episode 104.
Bye.
Bye.
welcome to Fruity Knitting. My guest today is Coté Jeronimus, who you briefly met back in episode 96 when we covered the Swiss Yarn Festival. Coté has recently started her own brand of luxury hand-spun yarns called Nomadnoos. Nomadnoos has a strong social story behind it, benefiting small communities around the world. The yarn is made from Mongolian yak, camel and sheep fibres, which supports the local Mongolian herders. The fibres are then taken to Nepal and hand-spun by a small group of women who are known for their very fine hand-spinning skills, and this helps raise these women and their families out of poverty. As you can imagine, it's a steep learning curve to start your own yarn company, particularly when you're working very closely with different cultures. But it's been an exciting adventure for Coté, and I'm really looking forward to hearing more about her story. So welcome, Coté. It's really great to have you on Fruity Knitting a second time.
Thank you, Andrea. It's the same. It's a pleasure for me to be back in your show.
So can you start by giving us a brief background on yourself and then tell us how Nomadnoos came about, how it got started?
Yes, of course. So, as a lot of us, I learned to knit and to sew from my grandmothers, and I really liked these creativities, and that's why I also did some courses of weaving, spinning, and all these other things. And after high school, I went into this direction. I went to a designer school in Amsterdam, and when I finished that, I went to Paris. I told my parents that I would only be going for 6 months internship, and in fact I never returned. After 6 months in Paris, I got a job and I stayed there. I worked for corporate companies, and during their years, because it's now almost 25 years, I work in the textile industry. I saw how it shifted to fast fashion business and business model, and also through all the traveling I did, I saw the big negative social and environmental impacts textile industry can have for the suppliers and on the social level and on the environmental level. So that's why I decided to start to work as a consultant on my own, and I worked for very interesting projects. One is in Mongolia, as you said, so I worked with the Swiss Agency for Development and Cooperation with the nomadic herders, and I worked for another NGO in Nepal, and especially these two projects, Nomadnoos was born, because I linked the high-level luxury fibers of yak and camel from the nomadic herders to the craftsmanship, the spinning craftsmanship in Nepal of the Nepalese women and some men. And because I really, my aim is to go back to a slow yarn and a value of the textile industry, which is also fitting to the knitting community, because while you are knitting your own products, you take your time, right? So a slow yarn fits for me, a slow qualitative yarn fits for me to the time you take also to knit your product.
Okay, now what about the name? It's a very interesting name. How did that come about?
Well, nomad comes from the nomadic herders, and noos means wool, but in fact we're all nomads, right? So I traveled a lot, and I think everybody travels these days everywhere. Well, maybe not today, but these days, and also in the knitting community through all this social media and this this virtual community, we're all traveling in a certain way. While knitting. So it is not only the nomadic herders, but it's also we are all nomads and we're all traveling. It's either in our thoughts or in a real travel. We're all traveling, so we're all nomads.
So you said that you worked as a sustainability consultant in Mongolia. Can you explain to us how the cashmere industry has contributed to the desertification of the Mongolian grasslands, and how the industry is now trying to find a solution for that?
Due to the huge demand of the fast fashion industry for cashmere fibers, the herders increased their herds because they needed to have, they saw the opportunity to get a higher income, not considering the impacts that could have on their lands. So they increased their herds with 66%, which really, through over the years, gave a desertification of 76% of the Mongolian grassland. Because you have to know that goats, contrary to yak and camel and sheep, are not only eating the grass but also the roots, and that's the big problem. And it's just also because after the Russian left the country, there was no exportation of meat anymore. So it's not only textile, but there are different factors. And that's why the nomads, they kept their goats longer and longer, and also older. So because the best quality of cashmere fiber is between 1 and 3 years, while now they keep the goats till 5 years. And when I spoke also with processors, so who are washing and carding the yarns, they saw a decline of the quality of the cashmere through the years because herders keep their goats much more longer. And that's a big problem because cashmere is a luxury fiber, and it should stay a luxury fiber.
And also, you were telling me earlier that there's quite a social problem for them when they leave their traditional lifestyle and they go back to the cities, and there's quite a lot of poverty there, and so it's hard for them. They tend to want to stay on the land, don't they?
Yeah, so the life for nomads is hard. It's a hard life. However, they live in nature, and it's not easier. You cannot say it's easier, but when they decide to stop to live as a nomad, they go to the city, it's even harder. Because there's a lot of poverty in the city. It's very difficult for them to get an apartment, so they come with their yurt, their tent. They come and they live in the suburb of the city, where they live in the same circumstances as in the steppe, and often also in the city. In the places where they live is no water, no work. So the conditions are very hard, and it's often there that they really go into poverty even more than when they live in the steppe, and they have this hard life, which in the winter it's very cold, in the summer depends where they are, but it can be very warm also. It is a different poverty as we will go and later to Nepal, but there is really a thing to consider. What would be the best life? And I remember when once I visited a nomadic family, and I had a discussion with a wife of a nomadic herder, and she told me, she said, we don't have the biggest herd, but it's enough to make a living out of it. I'm happy, I have my freedom, I live in the steppe, and my kids are going to school, they're on boarding school, so it's okay for me, and I have a nice life. So that was very
touching.
Touching to hear that, and I think that is also very important to understand that. It's also what do you want out of your life, right?
Yeah.
So that was really touching. Yeah.
Okay, so I actually want you to talk a little bit more about the herder's lifestyle, because you've spent quite some time together with them. So just so that we understand the culture a little bit more, can you describe what their relationship is with their animals, how big their herds are, how often they move, what the different roles are between the men, women and children, just something like that. You've also eaten with them, so what kind of food are they eating? Just to paint a picture for us.
Okay, well, I will start with the food. So, in fact, because that was very impressive to see, and because when you visit them, they really make a big meal, even more than what they eat normally. So when I go there, normally I pretend to be a vegetarian, but not because I like meat, but there's so much they really cook, like if it's a big party when you come. So they really use everything from the animal, let's say. For example, yak herders, they use the meat. They use the milk to make cheese, to make milk, to make sweeties. The meat is boiled, and they use every part of the animal. The longer hairs are, they make cords out of it. So it's a very ecological way of using what they have. Regarding vegetables, that's very poor, because they mainly have potatoes and carrots and cabbage. That's the only thing they have, and it's a high protein diet. The position of the man and to the woman in the family, they are pretty equal, and that is very nice to see. So men are mainly herding. Women also, they help a lot with herding, but of course they also they have their daily household task, but they are on an equal level, which is different in Nepal. And the kids, they stay at home, let's say, till 4 years, and then they go to boarding school, because they need to go to school and in the steppe. So they live in small families. You can have like a couple of brothers with their wife together and some grandparents, or the 2 or 3. It's like that. In summer they have like 2 or 3 yurts, one to cook and one where they sleep and they live, while in winter at the winter camp they don't move that much. The animals also, they stay nearby the yurt and they cook and live in the same yurt. Yeah.
Well, that's really interesting. Okay, now you have taught them how to comb and harvest their animal fibres in a way that's going to bring them more money and enable them to keep that traditional lifestyle. So what were they doing traditionally, and what have you taught them to do differently?
So traditionally, they were always combing, okay, but they didn't have the understanding of the high quality of their fibers, because often middlemen came and they took like all the fibers in a big bag, and then it went over the border and it was sorted in another processing mill. So nowadays in Mongolia, it is not allowed anymore to export unprocessed fibers, even if it happens sometimes on the black borders, but officially it's not
allowed.
Sorry, I forgot the word. But they use the fibers. So they use like the long fibers of the yak to make ropes. They use it to make carpet and felted. But through this program, seeing that there was this high-level luxury fiber, we really learned them that they should separate it and not put everything together. Because in fact the animals, yak as camel, they are during wintertime developing this fiber, which they call it's yak down or camel down, and for yak they call it kulu. And this fiber is very, very fine. It has a very fine micron from around 17 micron. And in springtime, it flows naturally. It goes away from the animal. So there is like a short period where they can comb the animals. I was also very touched when I visited a camel nomadic family that he showed us how to do it. For example, for a camel, they first cut the upper hair, and then they comb the under hair. And he told us, he said, I will only do a part because it's still too cold. It's just to show you. But I will also only start combing in 2 or 3 weeks when the weather is better. So because these animals are an income for the herders, so they don't have any they don't want to treat them badly, so they really take care of their animals. So we learned them how to comb in the best way. We also did a research about what is the best comb to comb them, to get the most fibers out of it, which and less painful, because it's not painful, but less when the animal will feel it, not at all almost. So we did a comparison between a Tibetan one, a Chinese one, and a Mongolian one, and finally we decided that the Chinese one would be the best, because in fact the comb the nails, or I don't know how you know it, are more closer to each other. So you had a better outcome, more fibers would stick on the comb than with the Mongolian one, which is wider. And what we also did, because normally what they did, they took the animal, they put it on the ground, and you need then 2 or 4 like people, depending on, of course, of the age of the animal, and they put ropes on the feet, and then they combed it, which is pretty stressful for the animal. So then the idea came up: why should you not build a fence? So now they put the animal, it stands in a fence, and then they can really comb it, and it's less stressful for the animals, and it's also easier for the herders.
And you've got some fibre there from yak, camel and the Sartuul sheep, haven't you?
Yeah. So yak comes naturally in 5 colors. We only buy 2 colors. So we buy dark brown, which is this color. This is already processed, so it's very soft already. All the stinky, greasy, muddy things are out. And we buy this color. This is natural gray. Okay, both processed. We overdye it, because you have to know that in Mongolia there are some white yaks, but they don't like them. Contrary to Tibet, where you have more white yaks, the Mongolian herders, they think that these yaks they get sick very quickly, and they're not pushing this kind of white yaks. Mainly they put it aside. So we buy dark brown and natural gray, which we overdye. So the darker colors are an overdye of the dark brown, and the lighter colors of natural gray. That's why you will never find in the Nomadnoos collection very clear colors, because it's not possible to have them on an overdye, and we don't want to take out the natural color, because that's a chemical process which is not good for the environment. So that's yak. Then camel comes in 2 colors. So this is a baby camel, so it's this, and there is a darker version, and it's very soft. And Sartuul wool is creamy white, and that is why we can also offer a range with lighter colors. So Sartuul is a sheep which lives only in several areas in Mongolia, not everywhere. And the Mongolian people in the beginning, they were just using the wool for carpets and that kind of thing. And it was a German research team who found out that during the processing, you really could have a very nice and soft fiber. The micron is, after different times of processing and taking out all the coarse hair, the micron is 20 micron. So, and they call it in Mongolia, it is sheep with the Kashmir touch, and it's very, very soft.
Well, that's so interesting. Now, the next step is Nepal. So let's go to Nepal now. Can you first of all tell us about the tradition of very fine spinning there, and then tell us about the women you're working with?
Yes. So traditionally they were spinning on spindles, but I think it was Gandhi who introduced what they call the Gandhi spinning wheel, and it's really hard work. So they went over to the spinning wheel because you get better results, but it's different with what we do in Europe. So what we do in Europe, the spinning wheel with the feet, who is driving the spinning wheel, it doesn't exist there. We are driving some tests, but it's difficult to get them used to that. But the spinning wheel they're using, it's a spinning wheel where they turn with one hand, and then with the other hand they're spinning. And they really get very beautiful, fine yarns, because it is embedded in their experience, in their lifestyle since ages, because they're used to spin silk, they're used to spin nettle, and nettle is really difficult to spin. And they used all these yarns to weave and to knit during ages already. So when we started to work with them, we train them first for a month. We give them first cotton, because cotton is even more difficult to spin than wool. So they spin cotton, and when they're able to spin that in a regular way, then we give them wool. And it is very important that they are able to spin like several lengths in a row, because as you know, in the skein we cannot afford to have knots. So that is also something we had to explain them, that when they're spinning, we cannot accept any knots, right? So that is what we learned them also. And we also defined the thickness we want. They all live spin from home. These are marginalized women which are home-based, because either they had a job before and they had to quit it because they have small children, and there is only there's no childcare in Nepal. Either they never had a job. So it gives them an income.
So what are some of the challenges of that you've had working with them and making it sort of on the business side? Like you mentioned very briefly that you were looking at introducing different spinning wheels. Explain that a little bit.
So it's still the case, and we're working that, we're still testing it, and these two different spinning wheels to give them a more comfortable way of spinning, because now they're spinning with the Gandhi spinning wheel, they're sitting on the ground. While you can say in summer it's okay, but in winter it's really cold. There's no heating, there's nothing what they have in their houses, and you know, it's on the ground. It's either earth or it's either sand even in their houses, or it's like it's gravel or beton. So it's cold. They some have a little mattress where they sit on. So that's why we would like to continue this test, or we're continuing it with a spinning wheel where they sit, where they spin with their feet. And we're also searching for funding to build a workshop for them where they can come freely, because it will be difficult to employ these people, since they have to take care of their household tasks, and they have to take care of their children. So while wanting to build this workplace, we also want to offer them childcare in the workplace, because today they live, you have to imagine, these people live in a house, different families in the same house, and they have one room which is between 12 and 14 square meters, where husband, wife, 1, 2, 3, 4 children live and sleep and do everything.
Okay, so you've got some of the yarns around you. Let's have a look at them. Tell us a little bit about the dyeing process, and also, apart from the obvious, what's the difference between a hand-spun yarn and a machine-spun? So what are you looking for with the twist and the plying, etc.?
So we bring 4 qualities of yarn. So we have camel yarn, and we have yak, and we have sartuul yarn. And you can really see a difference. In fact, also the technical aspect of the fiber, right, gives another yarn. And this is through hand spinning. You see it even more, because there is no industrial thing, which it's all done by hand. So you cannot correct anything as you can, or less, I would say, as you can do in industrial spinning. So yak comes out very fluffy. I don't know if you see it in the camera. It's really, it's very fluffy, while camel is a little bit cleaner. And then the sartuul yarn, this looks most as a hand spool yarn, and it's also because we found out, so sorry, I jumped ahead, but responding directly to your question about twisting. So first we spin, and then it's twist in a small workshop. So we found out that if we twist sartuul in the same way as we do with camel and yak, then while knitting, it will twist also, your product will twist. So that's
on the
why
bias.
That's why the twisting of the sartuul is a little bit more looser than the twisting of the yarn of the yak wool and the camel wool. And that's also something important to know, you know, because through weaving we never had a problem, but while hand knitting, it's very important that your pullover stays straight. So that is really something we worked about. Also, dyeing is done in the same workshop. So it goes from spinning at home. The ladies and the men, our spinners, we have one man. They bring the yarns back. Then it's twisted in the workshop, and we also have what we call a dyeing master, and it's all hand dyed. So it's hand dyed with an ecological. It is a chemical dyeing, but it is a dyeing with respect for the sustainable aspects. So that means that the ingredients are fitting to standards, which even more than azure-free standards. Yeah. Also, the water after dyeing goes to a very small water plant, and then it goes in the sanitary and in the vegetable garden of the workshop.
So just very quickly, what colours have you got? What kind of colour range?
So for yak, we have mainly dark colors and medium colors, and we have about 14 colors now. And Sartuul, we bring both, so very light and bright colors, and that is why we can also really play with this sunny and these very bright colors in Sartuul, because the base is white. And Camel, we just increased the colors. We now have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 colors now in Camel.
Okay, that's a good range.
Yeah, that's a good range. And I forgot the fourth, it's a quality we also bring. It's a mix of Sartuul and yak. So we twist, it's a 3-ply. We twist 1 yak with 2 Sartuul, which gives a very nice heather color. We dye it before and then we twist it after.
Sounds lovely. Now, what about the garments behind you? What are they made out of?
This is Sartuul. So it's good to see because it's the same garment. It's designed by Eri, who is a Japanese designer. So this is in Camel, and you can see that it is a little bit more loose, let's say, while this is the sheep. And because in sheep you have more crimp than in Camel, that's for true. So this will open a little bit more than this one. It's the same model. Yeah. So this is a pullover which was just released 1.5 months ago. Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. Now, Coté, you live in the Swiss mountains near the Italian border, and one of your hobbies is to herd the local Scudder sheep with your dogs, which just sounds like so much fun. I would love to do that. And you're also producing a local Swiss yarn from the Scudder fleeces, which we want to see and hear about in just a minute. But first of all, can you just tell us a little bit more about your hobby, the Scudder sheep and the local landscape?
Yeah, of course. So I have 3 dogs, and with one of my dogs, I'm sheep driving. It was always a dream for me to do it, but I'm just a beginner, I have to tell you, because it's like for me it's a kind of meditation, because you forget everything. It's same, it's not repetitive as knitting, but it's like it cleans your mind. I'm outside, and I love to be outside with the sheep, with my dog, and so the objective is that he brings the sheep to me. So for the moment I'm in this level where on a short distance he comes and he brings the sheep to me, but then you have to give the good orders to your dog, like go to the right, go to the left, but you don't say, it's like come by, away, stop, lay down, all these orders. And he has to follow this, and he has to put the sheep in the correct position. Which is not easy, because sometimes you have very stubborn sheep. It's not only donkeys who are stubborn, but sheep also. Because I also learned through some courses I did that you have to focus, and you have to understand which sheep is the leader. And you have to drive your dog on that sheep so that the other sheep will follow, So it's not as easy as it looks. And when I see experienced people, it's incredible, because they are just with a whistle. They stand there, and the dog, he goes for 1 kilometer searching for the sheep, brings them back, and it's incredible. So I hope I will be there in several years. But due to this hobby, let's say, I met the Scudder sheep. because some of the people I'm training with, they have this sheep, which is a very ancient sheep. It is a sheep which was which existed in the long time ago in Prussia, and it was important in Germany and in Switzerland, and it doesn't exist in Prussia anymore, or very rarely. And it is a very small sheep. It has a beautiful hair, but there is a lot of coarse hair in it. Of course, it's completely different from the Nomadnoos line. It is a very rustic sheep hair. So, as in so many countries, national wool lost a little bit their importance. So it's also important, I think, to bring it back, but to find the right usage of the wool. So I will show you some of the skins we bring. For the moment, we only bring brown. This is the natural color. So this is a mix. We twisted it. It is a 4-ply, and you have 3 skudde wool and 1 silk. It's Tusa silk, and this is 100. This is also with silk, but ton on ton. Okay, so it is a little bit crispy, but for outerwear it is perfect, and also for beanies and that kind of thing. But it's not a wool you would wear directly on your skin. So that is the first step. So it is it's all so processing took a lot of time, carded, and in fact the people here in Switzerland, they're happy to give me the wool. So because they're proud that there will be some new wool into the market. So that's really great. Yeah.
So will you keep them in the natural colors, do you think?
The browns, yes, but I will play with the white.
Okay.
With the white, I will play a little bit more.
And it's called the Swiss cool wool, isn't it?
Yeah, it's called, so I call it Swiss cool wool because for me it's like lifestyle, outerwear, and to give this a little bit more cool touch, you can say. And as you see it, and I think we had a discussion, I told you, it's the same with the Nomadnoos. I use papers which are biodegradable, and also this is the same. And here you have seeds in it because I like to give a very funny touch on some things. So you can plant it, and then I will show you. Here, I don't know if you can see it very well, but there are seeds in the paper. So you will flower the world when you are knitting. That is the main message, to do something good. I know also that a lot of knitters, they want to keep their labels, but I would suggest you to put it in the ground and look at your flowers.
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
Okay, that brings me on to our very last question, and that is circular economy. So let's go back to Nomadnoos. First of all, because that's where you've implemented it, just explain what circular economy is, and then how you're using it inside of Nomadnoos.
Circular economy is really to rethink the elements we use in our daily life, so that it can be that after usage they can come back into the supply chain, right? So it is another way of designing, let's say. While we are using only natural fibers, we can reuse them again, and that was the idea, where the idea started, just with leftovers to reuse them again. So it's not only about recycling, it's really to have like a secondary supply chain beside with the leftover cuts, which it can be pre-production and post-production. So it means that when you spinning and you have some leftover yarns from spinning, you can make a new, when you destruct them and you spin it again, you can make a new yarn. And also with post-consumer yarns, and that is where this closed circle yarn comes in. So and it's not only for Nomadnoos. So we are going to start this with some shops, and a closed circle bring back program, which when a person brings some yarn to the shop, they will get a discount for a further purchase of closed circle yarns. So they can bring like 100 grams, 200 grams, a kilo of leftover yarns, because I know knitters, they have always little leftover yarns and you cannot always use them. I know a lot of people, they like to use them for striped beanies or a striped pullover or something else, but it's not always possible. So so the idea of this program is to bring it back to the shop or send it back to us. You can ask me where to send it, and then we will make a new yarn out of it. So that means that it will be broken, it will be carded again, and we will spin it. So it's an industrial spin yarn. It's not a hand spin yarn, because this is done in Europe.
Well, you certainly are doing so many adventures. It's very exciting to listen to, and it was great to have you on Fruity Knitting again. I'm very envious of your overseas travels.
Well, maybe one time you can come with me, you know.
Yeah.
Let's see. We're also organizing impact trips in Mongolia, and I'm thinking about also a trip to Nepal. So it would be a pleasure to have you on one of these trips, so you can see directly the nomadic herders, or you can even exchange with the spinners.
Oh, I'm so excited. That sounds great. Well, look, Coté, it's been brilliant to have you on Fruity Knitting and hear in much more detail the story behind what you're doing. It's been really great. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure to exchange with you. And I wish you a good end of the day.
Thank you. Let's say goodbye to the audience. Bye.
Bye.